got a hard one. Every time over the ex-wife's birthday. That's cool.
Yeah, he like rolled through.
But there was an unburned small piece in the bottom that like somebody tried to start a fire and didn't work. And that's holding it up off the ground. So the tidbit of positive might be put a couple pieces down that are sacrificial lambs underneath everything. So it forces
It's always
a gap.
good for flow too, yeah.
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 Oh.
This is the Fireside Chat. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back.
Jocko in the house.
We do our best work caffeinated. Cheers to that.
Telling you. I see this everywhere. Like everything I'm looking at shows it. I don't know if it's
Advertisements or people actually drinking it?
I think it's both. But I wonder if it's my algorithm or if they're just pushing the advertisements real hard.
Yeah.
Shout out to Crispy. These boots are awesome. They
Yeah,
finally
like 'em?
started making lighter weight Sasquatch size. So those are.
What are they?
I think that's an altitude if I remember right. But they make the new Laponia 3 and the Brickstall Mountain Light or something.
Yeah.
They have 3 or 4 new ones, and so I bought me 3 or 4 new pairs of boots because I always like to wear a lightweight hiker in general as opposed to a tennis shoe for daily stuff. I just rather wear a hiker, and they're not making the little Ativa in it, but they're making a quite a bit lighter boot, and dude, stupid comfortable. Like right out of the gate, just slide your foot in it. It's like you're sitting on a pillow.
That's nice. Yeah.
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 Bro, throw a bigger piece in there, man.
Yeah, we're ripping. They're probably getting some ambiance in the microphones.
Yeah. Well, actually, here, let me grab this one that I thought could stand to burn up.
Anyway, we got an excellent podcast lined up today. Yeah.
I'll get it.
We got today's big deal is a nut review. How do you like your nuts? Do you like them salty? Do you like them sweet? Do you like them small? Do you like them big? We're going to answer all those questions. And I have no idea how Josh likes his nuts, so. Yeah.
In my pants.
And we're on the verge of heading out on some 3D stuff. And yeah, man.
Ooh, dill pickle. Can I do this now, or do we have to wait?
We can do it right now.
I'm excited for
build
this
the
because I
suspense,
do
yeah.
love dill pickles.
Yeah.
I didn't
Tell
know.
them what you're opening there.
I'm opening a Planters cashew dill pickle flavored cashews, and I love cashews and I love pickles, so this should be fun. We'll see. I don't know. I've kind of built this up in my head a lot. It might just be disappointing by proxy.
That's part of the problem. Planters cashews.
Not disappointed.
Yeah, these are my archery snack at my last 3D thing.
Where does one purchase said nuts?
We can get them at our local Safeway in Liberty Lake.
Those are damn good.
On the same aisle as a sliced turkey.
Ah. Gosh dang. Yeah. Do they make a bigger bag?
That's the kind of bag you hope you could buy at Costco.
Yeah, right.
Let's see if Louis likes them. He just grabbed one.
I know I was dropping. How was it? Was it good?
He's
or did you just lick
crazy.
it?
He's one of those dogs that'll eat anything
Yeah. Apparently.
and pay for it later.
Yeah, coming out your caboose and the smell.
Yeah. But yeah, we're on the eve of getting down to the Lone Star State and narrowing in on gear.
Yeah, what do we got? 2 weeks now? Or less?
Less.
Are you sure?
No, 2 weeks from
No, it's like
2 weeks from tomorrow.
Yeah, it's 2 weeks from tomorrow. I was gonna say I thought we had 2 weeks to go.
Yeah. How you doing on that stuff?
Well, my lift is 33 is kind of done. I say kind of done because I got about 12 arrows through it before I went to a shoot this last weekend with my antelope hunting crew that came to town. Justice and Bobby both got new bows, and Pappy had his bow redone and retuned. So there was a day or two of resighting and confirming fitment and all those things with all those guys, and a bow build for YouTube that I had to do for somebody. And all those things combined, like, took the last 2 days that I had. So I ended up, like, shooting an arrow at 20 and 50 and did the downrange velocity test for the program. What the frick that program?
Precision cut.
Precision cut. Thank you.
And you shot it over a Garmin.
Yeah, I shot it over a Garmin. We did one of them with the lab radar, but put brand new AA batteries in it, and it was like reading that the batteries were dying or dead. Dan was here when we were doing that, and he had said he used a booster pack because it'll take a ported power pack to it when he did it, and he had no problems.
That sounds like a lot of fuckery to get a sight tape.
Well, it is, but it is. The positive to it is it just sits off to the right of you. So as long as you're within like 12 inches of it, when you shoot it, you can't hit it, right? So you can't accidentally hit it. The Garmin worked really well and was really simple and got very similar results with both. So, it does apparently measure downrange velocity accurately.
What were you getting for velocity? Was it
I don't even remember.
Oh, okay.
I did like 7 of them in 2 days. There was multiples of them that we used on that. And that program worked flawlessly. He gave it good information. It spit out good information. But by proxy through that, I ended up shooting about 10 arrows through that bow total. Like, to get it tuned, I had to top hat move it, put a shim spacer, tie a peep in it, get an impact at 20, and then roughly estimate where 50 was, shoot it over the Garmin, get the tape, go back out to 20, shoot it, which apparently I didn't accurately shoot my 20 at all because I was off quite a lot when we showed up at the Coeur d'Alene Bowman shoot. My first arrow was like 4 inches high. And I think the indicator needle had shifted or something from when I was shooting it. And I spent like the first 10 targets readjusting where my actual indicator was supposed to be pointed. And then shot fine the rest of the time. But the first 10 didn't go super well. And it was just high, 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 high. Like, cut a little more, cut a little more, cut a little more. Okay, now I'm hitting about where I think I'm pointed at. Make sure that indicator needle's lined up with the actual accurate yardage on that. And then,
what arrows did you go with?
I shot RIP, actually 3DHV 350s with lighted nocks. That was RIP XV 350s with lighted nocks. And
your partners probably loved you in the group.
We all had lighted. We all shoot lighted nocks. It was all our hunting stuff. We weren't trying to 3D compete. That was like a lightweight antelope setup.
No funny business.
No funny business. No fuckery. I shot inserts and field points, and no glue-ins, no nothing. Just like, can I take this hunting? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that, honestly, I'd rather do it all that way personally. Oh, I go good.
Well, especially if you got everyone in the group on the same page,
Yeah, everybody was shooting a hunting bow,
which makes it fun.
And we played just best target, or whatever you called it.
Oh yeah, like best arrow.
Yeah. So just you get a point for this target, move on to the next one. Mm-hmm. That kind of thing.
Yeah, how was the spread of targets? I didn't make it to this one.
So we were watching the weather report on Saturday. So it was supposed to be terrible in the morning, but it got better in the late afternoon. And then we were told on Saturday they don't care what time you shoot at, especially if you're not shooting Sunday too.
Well, if you're not shooting because there's no score, right? This was
I don't know. I didn't take a scorecard.
Yeah,
so
I think this was just a straight shooting, fun shoot, not part of their Triple Crown or whatever.
Got it. Well, we were just shooting for fun anyway, regardless. Mm-hmm. So just shooting amongst each other. But we didn't even get there until 1. And ironically, earlier in the day, the weather was great.
And did you guys?
And we got rained on. So we shot 2 of the 3 courses because each loop seemed to take us almost 2 hours.
Were you guys well behaved Friday night?
Define well behaved.
Did you have a hangover Saturday morning?
No, not really.
Nothing, a coffee and some fresh air.
Nothing. Yeah, and when we didn't have to get up super early, I ended up having to run over to Justice's job site and pick up a heater and bring it over to the mom's house here, so the drywallers could work in a warm environment because the tape won't dry very fast.
Yeah, it probably helps to dry or whatever.
You have to have heat in there, and so it took me like an hour rounding this crap up. Bring it over, and then the wrong plug's in the wall.
I was going to ask you.
Yeah, it didn't. It has a different plug for it because it goes in the dryer, but it's not a standard dryer plug. So I did all that for nothing. Did that before I went back over. But yeah, Friday night, gosh, I was trying to get all my stuff together and get my sighting done, and I had to edit a video and get one up because it had been like 5 days, and I still didn't have one done because they came in earlier than I thought they were. Like I was trying to finish digging the trench over to the pump house, right? And I got like 7/8 of the way there. I got close, but they showed up, so I had to stop digging. I thought I had like a half a day to mess with my stuff before I had to work on their stuff, so I cut my own time short. That was on Thursday, and then Friday, same thing. It's like I still don't have a sight tape. I still don't have stuff lined up right. So I knocked all that out, and then came up and edited a video. Tried to find my rain gear, whatever else I was going to need for the next day, and ended up heading over to Justice's for dinner. And they had all already eaten. I didn't get there till like 8:15, 8:20. Had a few barley pops, and we discussed the antelope guidebook, rule book. So the belt, right? Which we pulled that down, showed around, made everybody look at it while they're here. Has there's rules. Justices wrote this book. And I'm trying to remember. We added a couple rules to it that night. No, there's always an addendum. It was all the members are present.
Yes.
So we established a couple of rules, like you can't, you have to hunt with everybody. Basically, is the premise for the next antelope to count. Just to clarify for the people listening, the antelope belt goes to the person who shoots the biggest antelope every year, right? And the holder of the belt does not have to relinquish the belt until somebody actually shoots an antelope. Everyone has to be present for that to start. So, like, we have a determined time we're all going for like 4 or 5 days together. Well, if, Bobby, who comes from California, will frequently come earlier. It's like, well, if you shoot one before we get there, it doesn't count. Right? Now, the addendum was put in that if you shoot one after everybody leaves, like you go back down and try to go hunting again, or somebody stays late, it can count, but everyone has to come back in April and have it officially scored because we have a tape and everything for scoring it, right? This is way too elaborate, but it's pretty funny.
Well, that probably hoses Bobby the most.
So it can be a validly scored animal, but you must come back in April because apparently we're going to do this every year now.
Oh, they're going to do this shoot.
Yeah.
Or a shoot.
Or shoot and, get all our gear tuned up and working good, right? And spend 4 or 5 days and just have a good time. But you can come back in April and officially measure it, and if it beats it, you may then relinquish the belt, but the belt holder still gets to hold it till that time.
Yeah.
So, and what else? What else do we add? Oh, if any of the, I don't know if I should say this in here. So, if anyone breaks a rule, there's 10 rules in the book now.
Yeah.
And rule number 1 is Pappy's always right. First off. But if anyone breaks one of the rules, I'm trying to remember what it was. Oh, you have to register as a Democrat and vote that year as a Democrat and send proof of your ballot to the group or something like that. Oh, God, those boys. That's good times. But yeah, we were... I think it was 10 o'clock or 10:30 is all on Friday night. It wasn't late. They kept going. I'm like, nope, tapping out. I can see where this is going. I'm not doing it.
Writing's on the wall.
Same thing on Thursday. It's like, yeah, I can see where this is going, and I'm going home because I have to be at work at 7 a.m. You guys don't.
Yeah, you bastards don't. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, everybody, both Justice and Bobby both got a lift 33. And before that shoot was over, like Bobby he must have said at least 4 times, he's like, I've never shot so good. Like, this thing's amazing. It really is. And he had an RX-7 Ultra before. Justice had a Revolt X, and he said the same thing. He's like, this absolutely shoots better than my other bow. So, and I don't know if it's just those guys, those bows, they happen to really like them, but it was really positive feedback. And I was also shooting a Lift 33 because out of the hunting bows I built, that was the closest one to being ready to actually use. So I grabbed it and finished tuning it, put a peep in it, and sighted it in. And other than my impact point being off when I first got there by a pretty good amount because I just hadn't shot it much and refiguring that, the bow shot great. Like, it went where I pointed it. I had no left to right impacts, which when I'm judging how well a bow shoots, that's usually what it is. It's like, what does my left to rights look like? Because up and downs are math. Right? As long as you're not like bobbing your head weird and not centering on your peep, and not getting your head position right. If you're high or you're low, it's you with your sight tape or your sight tape or your drops not right in the equation. It's not something you can really create personally, like shot to shot. You don't blame up and downs on a bow. You blame left and rights on a bow, on a torque, how torquey it is. And the bow balanced well, it pointed well, shot well, and I only had an offset bar and a 15-inch front bar on it. I didn't have any side bars, any extra weight. I only had the 3 ounces on the front. I didn't do anything to it. I didn't have the quiver on it at the time. I had the one-piece detachable, and I left it off. But yeah, it shot well. I can't gripe. But that shoot, I think the farthest shot was like 70, 80 yards at one point. They're all close. They're all 40, 50,
It's a good
30.
mix of hunting yardages, right?
Yeah, it's realistic hunting stuff.
Practical hunting yardages. It's more of like what your standard 3D test is, not
Right.
like the long bomberino type testing that we got going at TAC.
Yeah, it's very different in that scenario. Those are two very
You're
different
basically
things.
doubling the yardage when you go to TAC or whatever.
Yeah, pretty much.
Average shot goes from like 35 to 70. That's probably about right, hey?
Yeah, it's pretty close. They had stuff at 25 yards, which attack is usually 50 to 120.
Yeah, 20. You don't see 25.
It's kind of your plan if you're going to attack. Really work on 50 to 120. I don't remember anything being beyond
I don't even know how you get good at being a long. How do you get good at being a long range shooter? Like, some people are just naturally. Maybe it's because there's not expectations or whatever. Some people just naturally shoot well at long range.
Yeah.
I can think of a few examples of people that are more comfortable or better long range shooters than like 20 to 50. I feel like I shoot better from 20 to 50 than long range.
I think my strength is long.
Yeah, I think
personally.
you're one of those people. Yeah.
Yeah, I happen to shoot it better. I mean, I shoot, most stuff pretty decent regardless.
Yeah.
But no, I just something about when that's out there. I don't know if it's easier for me to focus. And I know that it's probably has more to do with the fact that your pin looks like it's moving a lot more because your target's so small. That for me, it forces me to not pay attention to it at all. Because I know it's small, so I'm just looking at what's small, and trying to work on that.
Yeah, I think the opposite happens to me.
Well, it could be.
Yeah.
It's all your frame of reference and focus.
Yeah.
But and in all fairness, like in the last 10 years or 8 years, I've probably spent more time shooting at long distance than
That's true
anything.
too. Yeah,
Because the bulk of my shooting, because I haven't really competed at all, has been sighting in my bows as far as I can sight them in at, because that's what makes them accurate for me. So I've got more arrows shooting 100 to 100 to 200 yards probably in the last 4 or 5 years than I do 0 to 100, which probably sounds weird, but
yeah.
every bow that I build, period, even the little ground blind stuff, I figure out how far it'll go and I shoot it as far as it'll go most of the time. And that's really where I hone in and trim in the left and rights and the exact drop velocities and the broadhead tuning. So I know everything's right. Because when you shoot at that 130 yards, then you go back to 20 yards seems like a joke.
Yeah.
It feels way too easy. And that's what you want. Because I want a 20-yard shot to be presented to me and have it go, well, this is kick, I'm done. Because I feel that confident in my gear.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I've spent more time shooting and farther away in the last 5 to 10 years. Very little time shooting up close. So.
Yeah. There's some recipes to shoot a long distance, and we've definitely talked about them before, but we should double back on them because it's one of those things that doesn't get talked about enough. But let's talk about the ingredients. If you want to extend your sight tape, there's some ingredients you can play with. I'll say the first one, which is arrow speed.
Which arrow speed is weight,
Yeah.
right? Period.
Yeah, because
Right.
all things kept the same. I mean, you could increase your draw weight.
You could shoot more poundage.
Yeah.
That'll help. Anytime you move your peep up, that'll help.
Yeah.
If you're not using like a nose button or something like that, if you install a nose button, you should be able to move your peep up a little bit, like
Yep.
an eighth to a quarter, which will give you more drop. The higher your peep is in the string, the
Yeah.
farther your cast is, right? No
So if you're one
offense,
of those
but
short-faced guys or gals, you just don't get quite the same
if
poke.
you're trying to get every last little bit of distance out of it, you can, and you're just shooting field points. If you shoot cock feather down, it puts your other 2 fletches. If you're shooting a 3 fletch like this,
Right.
so you have more clearance over the scope that's moving down, because it at the end of the day, you can only move it down so far before your arrow runs into it, right? And that's what limits your ability of range. But so if you're shooting cock feather out and these other 2 are up, you have a little more likelihood of hitting when the one vein's like that. So if you move them to where they're like that, you can shoot another 3 yards probably.
The size of the scope and the size of the fletchings.
Yeah, smaller the housing,
Yeah.
the better clearance you're going to have. The smaller the vein, the better clearance you're going to have. If you're shooting a multiple pin and your bottom pin is down as low as it possibly can be, and you're using that to aim off of, that'll also increase your range. So that gets overlooked, that if your dot's like right in the middle of the housing, well, there's all this extra range here that you could have a reference for. So that's part of why I like the dual track, is it's a 2-pin that sits in the middle, and then I can drop the bottom pin down as far as it'll go. The Ultra View 2-pin does the same thing. It's down about as far as you can really put it in the housing before you lose it. The Spot Hog 2-pins are like that. CBE's 2-pins are like that, but they also have the 3 pins where you can move them up and down. And I like that, because you do give up. I mean, I want to say it's like 15 yards or 20 yards at long distance, having just 1 pin in the middle versus a second pin as low as it can fit in a normal size housing. So, I mean, those are all helpful. What else? What else can you do to
I think you
increase
hit the
your
main
range?
ingredients there.
I feel like there's something else.
I was thinking the main ones were peep height, arrow speed, arrow weight. Obviously, is a big one for that.
Yeah. Having your pin in the low part of the housing.
You're not going to
that'll
want
get
to
you a little
change
more.
your draw length to get more speed.
No, because you're not going to be accurate.
You just want the right draw length.
Yeah.
You can't really fuzz with that too much. Once you find it, that's it. You can't really just magically get some more draw length or grow longer arms.
Yeah, the good Lord only gave us so much.
Yeah,
That's for sure.
only blessed us with so much length, and that's what we have. So once that's that. Yeah, and really the big one there is arrow speed. So if you really want to shoot some laser beams, you can drop down to a lightweight arrow.
Yep.
And super fun. And when you drop down to a lightweight arrow, don't go to underspined arrow.
Yeah.
Because you will create headaches for yourself, which is basically what I did. I tried to force feed the 3D arrow I made, which was borderline too weak for my 3D bow through my hunting bow, and just a brain fart. And I created a headache for myself trying to get that arrow to tune out of my...
I tried to tell you not to do it.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, okay.
And I was just...
I'm like, what? No.
Yeah.
That ain't going to work.
I don't know what I was thinking. I guess I was thinking about everything else but the arrow. I was just looking forward. And so the situation was, I went with the really light arrow because I had already had it built. So I was kind of taking the low road, the easy road, which wasn't actually the easy road. But I actually don't like building arrows. I keep trying to convince myself that I do, and I don't like doing it. Every time I build a batch, I'm like, no, I'm going to like it this time. I don't like doing it. And then tried to force feed that through my Core SS, and I made this little shoot-off video. And during the shoot-off video, I was shooting all 3 bows side by side, and I was like, oh my gosh, this Core SS just doesn't feel good. It feels weird coming out of my hand. It just feels so weird. And basically, to get my arrow to tune, I had to move my cams all the way to one side, and that really dramatically changed the feel of the bow, surprisingly. To me, I had never had to do that before, but my cams are all the way to one side. The bow felt like any little bit of torque was exacerbated.
Yep.
And it didn't feel good. And I felt like a little bit of torque, and all of a sudden my arrows were missing like more than they should. And it was like, it was just not forgiving. Like my bad shots were worse.
Yep.
And anyway, long story short, got back to my hunting arrow, properly spined arrow, got the cams back to the middle. Just for fun, I wanted to put I flipped the discs into comfort because I wanted to see how it felt. And the bow feels wonderful again. So I'm going to kind of retest them and get a little more reps down range, but don't start with the bad.
Well, what you experience is a reality of trying to tune, right? So if you have an underspined arrow, it's going to be really hard to get it to tune, and you're most likely going to push the limits of orientations, i.e. rest position, cam position, right? If you do that with a underspined light arrow, it's even more extreme. And what you're experienced is how much more finicky a light arrow can be to tune than a heavier arrow, which is part of why people push people into heavier arrows, is because they're easier to tune. You're not pushing the bow to what it can do. It's like it's pushing the envelope of energy and transfer as far as it can go to get the most optimum velocity out of your bow. Everything about what I tend to gravitate towards is more difficult to work with.
That's true.
Right. But I'm pretty confident in what I'm doing, so I don't worry about it too much. But I also never would have tried to do what you tried to do. I was like, that's not enough spine. It's not going to work. You were probably two spine categories too weak.
Yeah, I bet I was.
Where you can probably, if you really work at it and you're careful, you can usually get one spine category too weak to work. You'll almost never get two.
Which is what I think is going on with the target bow. Like it's on that. Say if the range is green, and then the outer range is
Green,
yellow.
yellow, red. You're in the yellow on your target bow, and you're in the hard red on your hunting bow.
Exactly.
Which, when you built them for your target bow, I told you they were too weak.
Right.
Right.
That's
it's like,
true.
no, you need to go one up from that.
So,
it won't work.
Anyway.
It's like you could get away. Oh, what do you shoot? 140 or 130 in the front? How much
I
is
think whatever those glue and points weigh, I think they're 150.
Okay, so you could have got away with 100 with that arrow on your target bow, and it would have worked.
But it would have been so light.
It would have been lighter. But you're also
297.
starting. I understand that, but you're also starting with a light GPI shaft, right?
Yes.
So it's relative, and you're kind of overlooking the relative. You're like, well, I need 150s because I'm used to shooting that much weight in the front of my arrow, but you're also used to shooting an arrow that's 3 grains per inch heavier, right? So it's all a relative balance. It all matters. Like when I shot my,
I guess what I was thinking about was the 5 grains per inch thing with your bow weight.
Yeah, you still are. It's a 60-pound bow.
That's true. So 58 times 5 is
290.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah, I could have went way lighter.
you could have, like my my bow I built for antelope last year.
I was thinking 70 times. Yeah.
I was shooting 350s at 80, but I was also shooting my insert endpoint were 130. It was less tip weight than you're trying to shoot out of 400s, right? So, but it also ended up being about 15% FOC because the arrow weighed less and you balanced it out. That's what it ended up being. And I cut them a little shorter and I used a bit of I backed it up a little bit more of an overdraw type setup. But it all worked out to the same percentage. And I firmly believe that if you keep it around that percentage, you go down to 14, up to 16, somewhere in there, you're going to have something that typically performs well as long as it's adequately spined. And that bow was a little more finicky. Like I had to play with a couple different fletches to get it to really fly well. It didn't just immediately fly well, and I knew it wasn't going to because I went, this should be a 300, not a 350, but this arrow is a grain per inch lighter, and the velocity is going to be drastically quicker, and I'm trying to make this thing fast. So I pushed it, and I spent more time working on that bow and tuning that bow than I normally would for a Bowtech bow because they're so simple to tune. Right? I spent a bit more time with it, and it was a little more finicky, and I had to retune it once or twice. When finally all settled in, but that's the bow I shot 200 yards with a pin, like an actual hold-on shoot in a 3-arrow group that big. So it worked out, and I killed my antelope with that bow.
At 200 yards?
No.
Oh. I thought that's what you said.
No, I shot a target at 200 yards.
Oh, I thought you were talking about an antelope. You're
Now,
not shooting groups at antelopes.
that was with field points. When I put broadheads on, I lost some distance. I couldn't quite shoot 200 yards anymore.
Yeah, because no matter what, when you get to those long ranges, you get a little more drag, right?
Yeah, no matter what, unless you're using a field point that has built-in drag. Right, so if you're not, you're going to gain 10 to 15 yards at 200 yards with field points, somewhere around there, because there's just that much more surface area on your broadhead. Even your low-profile mechanical type broadhead, it still has surface area that your field point doesn't. So, but yeah, if you depending on what you're doing and what you're working with, you can shoot it a lot farther than you think. But arrow weight is by far the most important part of getting it to be able to shoot that far away, because you're limited by how fast it is. Faster it is, the flatter your trajectory, the farther it's going to go before you run into the sight. Now, there's mechanical ways around that, but nobody makes anything that allows you to shoot farther yet. Somebody did once, but it didn't work right. So but it's something I'd like to play with.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I want to talk about some simple stuff occasionally that I think we always end up. It's easy to talk about the stuff that is complex, but let's talk about some of the simple stuff because, you know, if you walk down a range with 100 people shooting, you would see some funk, right?
You'd see some what?
Some funk.
Here, would you
You'd
take
see-
those away, please?
You would see some funky
We're
shit
gonna keep
going
eating
on.
them.
You would see some
Some
rattlesnakes. You would see some hyperextended elbows.
Mm-hmm.
You would see some really out of position shoulder orientations.
Yep.
You would see some people holding low and driving the pin by. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of funk. But let's talk about how to draw a bow with words. And for the people that watch on YouTube, you know, we talk about that a little bit. But just even learning to draw the bow has been it's been a little learning curve for me. You
Okay.
know,
So, your basic premise of how to draw a bow, if you hook onto your string with your release, right? Put it out in front of you.
Yep.
Point it at the target. Lower your shoulder down.
which is a huge tip. That's a huge deal because you're setting your shoulder orientation proper.
Yeah, if you have your shoulder up, which people think, okay, squeeze my arms, right?
And they
brings
get
your shoulder up.
and they feel strong with their traps.
They do, it does. But if
And
you,
the trap's a strong muscle, but it's not as stable as your bone structure.
that's right. So if your shoulder's up like that, when you apply pressure on your hand, the weight goes right to your shoulder and up over your body. If you drop your shoulder down and then you apply the same pressure, it's going into your back. So it's way more stable.
Yeah, it's
So-
going into your bone structure.
Yeah, drop it down in the bone structure, draw the bow back, elbow above your shoulder on the right, as you draw. And then when you get to right about here, you want to rotate your other shoulder up and back, which will bring the hand into your face. And if your length is right, the distance in which the point of your arrow is lined up with down the shaft would like almost line up with your elbow, the opposite direction. So if your elbow's that way or that way of it, as you start to pull and compress it a little bit, it'll make you push left or right. That's why that length's super important. If you have the right overall length, when you start to pull, you're pulling straight backwards, not back into the left or back into the right. So that's where it gets really critical and why draw length is so important. And it's hard to do. But you can see it. If you could take a elevated image down on somebody,
top down.
it's super easy to see.
Yeah.
Or if I stand behind somebody, I can usually tell pretty easily. But I'm also so used to where someone's arm's supposed to be positioned, I can usually walk over and just push on it. There you go. Right there. That's what you
That
want.
elbow thing is one way I see when people are overdrawn because you'll see,
Yeah, it'll extend back beyond.
you'll see their elbow is dropped below the arrow, right? That'd be the right way to say it.
That's actually because they're not using their back. They're using their shoulder, their forearm, and their bicep to hold it back, right?
Oh, yeah. And that's another one. You'll see bicep pullers.
Yeah.
And every time I see that, I'm like,
Traditionally, that's the same guys doing this, drawing it back like that
yeah.
and then brings
So,
it up.
yeah, what Josh is describing is like you draw, the bicep puller draws back low and
And then comes into
the
their
hand
face.
low, and then they rise it. And for a person who's hunting, that's so much extra movement. You know?
Well, it's extra movement, but it's also really hard on your shoulder.
yeah, I mean,
It's not right for
yeah.
your shoulder.
archery at its core is like friggin' shoulders and back, and your shoulders are sensitive joints. So you want to extend your career. I mean, just learning to draw that bow, I think has to be like one of the top things you could do.
It's not a bad thing to focus on. That's for sure.
Well, and it's setting you up for success because when you draw the bow correctly, your shoulder orientations are good. And
Right.
then you can build on that with good shot execution and stuff. But yeah, that's a big deal. Now, you see some of this with target archery, and I know it's not a bad thing, but you see some variation where people start the bow. Some people kind of start it high and settle it down. And some people start with more of a bent front arm. Do you have preference? Or
I try to keep my arm straight, but not hyperextended
Yeah.
and not bent. So it's just like if you're pushing, there's just a little bit more forward. And if you had to push it hard, you'd actually have to raise your shoulder up. So that's personally my preference because if it's kind of locked, that's less muscle tension, right? If you're holding it at a bend, you're applying muscle tension to hold it at a bend. And every extra bit of muscle tension you have in your body is that much harder to duplicate. It's no different like doing reps at the gym and you're trying to do, push-ups or something. Each push-up gets a little harder because your muscles are a little more tired. So, and they're not doing the exact same thing every time and applying the same amount of pressure each time to achieve what you're doing. The same thing is true with archery. So the more muscle tension you apply to what you're doing, the more variable there is in between each shot, which is what makes it harder to be consistent, which is why you want bone structure, not muscle.
Yeah, bone structure, which is the reason you can watch a gymnast kick up into a handstand and they can hang out there for 2 or 3 minutes. It's because they're not, they're using some muscles, but they're largely using good anatomy and bone structure.
Yep.
And structural stability through their shoulder joints. And I just think that's such a simple way a person could set themselves up for success. I know with me, it's like I learned all these things early from you, and then at some point I had to circle back and be like, okay, let's get even better at this. Let's make sure we start with our shoulder lower, my draw arm shoulder. Let's get it lower. Let's get it more rolled back. And at that point, I had to like eat a little bit of humble pie and back my draw weight back a little bit, and then jump back up. And that's really not a big deal in the grand scheme of things. If you have to back your draw weight off for 3 to 6 months, so what? Who cares?
The male ego cares.
Yeah, the male ego cares.
The male ego cares a lot.
Yeah.
Same reason guys have too long of draw lengths all the time.
Same reason guys drive jacked up trucks.
Yeah, it's the same thing, man. It's all trying to compensate for something. I don't know what it is, but it ain't right.
Yeah.
But yeah, nothing's more important than your draw length being right, like hands down. Like,
Yeah.
everything else is so much easier if the bow is fit correctly to you. It makes a big difference.
Yeah, it does make a big difference.
Yep.
And downstream from your draw length is your grip. And we could probably talk about a grip for a whole podcast because it's such a big deal in archery. I didn't realize what a big deal it is, but it's huge.
It's where left and rights come from.
Yeah.
It just is. Granted, certain bows are more finicky that create left and rights a little bit more and a little bit easier. Or if your bow is massively imbalanced, you'll see left to rights a lot more. But in general, left to rights are your grip. Just hands down, they are. And so the pressure of it, which I don't know how well you can see it from here because you can't really zoom in on it, but the pressure of your grip
describe
should
it with
run through your
words
hand,
too,
right? So
only.
if we're working on here, the left hand, if you're a right-handed person, the left-hand side of the grip edge is what you're always going to feel, right? Because there's a left side and a right side, and you're feeling the left side because that's the edge that your hand would contact.
Yes.
And the line of that should run just off of your forefinger knuckle inward and go straight down. It kind of follows this, I think, is that the lifeline of your palm
I think they
or
call
something?
it that, yeah.
It's pretty close to your lifeline, but just a little bit off to the, if you're holding your hand like that, the right side of it. And it would come down to where it actually contours and touches down the bottom in that position, like so, which I know some of you are listening. And when you fire your bow, as you apply pressure forward, you shouldn't feel it move left to right at all when it goes off, assuming your bow's balanced.
Yeah, the bow shouldn't twist.
The bow shouldn't rotate.
Yeah.
And another telltale for that is if you've got your cams and everything set right? Your bow's tuned and it's wheel lean tuned and adjusted to where the cams are straight. When you draw the bow back and anchor in and line your eye up with the string, look up and look down, you shouldn't see left or right of the cam. You should see straight, right? So if you're torquing it left or torquing it right, when you look up at those cams, if you can see the right-hand side of the cams, you're torquing the bow to the left.
Oh,
if you can
okay.
see the left-hand side of the cam, you're torquing the bow to the right because you're applying that pressure.
I've never heard you say
once
that,
you
but
draw
that
it
makes
back,
sense.
yeah, it's how I'd usually look at something originally to make sure that it was pointed straight. When you draw it back, the cam should be straight to the person standing directly behind it. And if they're not, you're usually manipulating it, or there's something funky with that bow to get it to tune, like you're, I don't know, shooting a 400 spine arrow with a 150 grain tip at 70 pounds and trying to get it to tune. So you've maxed the cams one way or the other to try to change what's happening, right? To try to make it look straighter. And then you would see the side of a cam. And then you would look at that and go, why is that like traveling wonky? It's because you're tracking incorrectly to achieve what you're trying to achieve.
Wouldn't you say the most common kind of hand torque is people on the left side of the grip because they grip it like this instead of like this?
Yeah, it's more common. So if you're ideally in a correct bow grip, your wrist isn't involved at all. Like you rotate your hand to where your wrist isn't doing anything, and so you don't have that manipulation. And if you're on, people have more of a tendency to bring their fingers around and hold the grip.
Yes.
Which drops your your outside knuckles down and to the left.
Yeah, down and to the
and
left.
brings your wrist into the equation now. So now your wrist can move left to right.
And it tends to open up your elbow as well, which is the thing that people smack with the string.
It literally brings your elbow toward
Closer
the
to the
string,
string,
right? Every time. So if you bring your fingers around, try to hold it and grip it, you're way more likely to smack your arm at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And you once again, you're employing more muscle tension, right? So as you apply muscle tension, every time you fire it, you're a little more fatigued. You don't apply the same amount of tension. Your left to right starts to change a little bit. And if you think about your grip not being directly behind the bow, if you grip your bow like we're just talking about, where your fingers come around the front, right, and you're gripping it, what that's going to do is pull the bow, what was square, and pull the back of the bow to the left and the front of the bow to the right, which is going to move your pins in relation to your arrow rest. It's going to cause you to hit different left or right. That's where it comes from, right? And that's what torque tuning is trying to do. It's trying to find there's an optimal point in the orientation of where your arrow rest is and where your sight is. And as you move your sight in or out, or your rest back and forth, right, or in or out, there's a point where when you flex them, they both hit in the same spot. It's like the reactionary of firing it makes those things orientate the same. And that's what makes torque tuning really valuable if you are skilled enough to shoot the bow consistently enough to see it. And there'll be points where you can like manipulate it left or right, and it'll still go in the same spot no matter what you do. It's hard to do. You have to be a skilled archer. Michael made a video explaining it just recently on his channel over there. Michael Altman, go check it out. He did a pretty good job explaining it. And it's not super complicated. It's just you have to be skilled enough to hold a bow accurately enough to tell where it's hitting. When you're physically taking it and tweaking it to the left really hard. And don't overdo it, because you can derail a bow doing that. Like if you really reef on it and fire it, the string will miss the cam coming forward and it just pops off. Right? So there's a fine line of doing that. But it does 100% work.
Yeah.
You just have to be skilled enough to tell what you're doing.
Yeah, it's like one of those, it's like the things it's like a 400 level class in college. Like you don't just start there.
Well, I'm still trying to understand. And I believe it's the engineering of the bow, not the person holding it, that does it. And if that's true, and I haven't been able to get an answer of whether or not it's true, because I haven't torque tuned a ton. But if it's true, then there should be a point in which it would shoot the same for everybody. Right? So if I got to back my arrow rest up 2 1/4 inches to torque tune this bow, it should be 2 1/4 inches for everybody on that bow. And if that's true, then why aren't they just designing it that way? Like, why don't they design where you would mount the rest on normal is 2 1/4 inches behind the point in which the bow wants to rotate to achieve that? And I'm just not sure. It could be because if it's simply manipulating the bow left to right, then it's not how much torque the individual applying. That eliminates the individual from being in that equation, right? So, or how far out the sight needs to be. It'd almost be like there'd be a manual for, hey, this bow, set the sight at this position, the rest at this position. And when you rotate it, it won't hit back any different.
I bet that could largely be true for most people and then I bet you some people would find it to be a little different because, they imply some different torque or whatever.
Well, yeah, but if you're torquing it left or right and it hits in the same spot, then torque's eliminated. That's my point. It's like it can't,
I understand. I understand what you're saying.
By theory, that can't be a human thing. If you can push that bow left and push that bow right and it goes in the middle no matter what, torque's eliminated, the human variable's eliminated. So it shouldn't technically be a human individual thing. It's an engineering
I understand
thing.
What you're saying. Yeah, that's a very interesting concept.
Yeah. And I thought, God, if you could just do that, why don't somebody make a graph and a chart? Now, what is possible in that scenario is it's different at different draw lengths. Because the cams cycle different and roll different, right? So where the cams lobe over and how they position would be a little different. So at 20, you may have to do it at 28 inches and 27 inches and 26 inches to get different results. But I would also think that's probably on a graph and on a chart. So as you move that and change those draw lengths, this position would be slightly different. And I think that would continue to amplify as you went. So once again, you should be able to make like a chart for it. So, hey, a Title 38 has this rest position and this sight position. And as you move it from here, it changes this much. Might be useful information someday for somebody who has way more time than me to screw with forever. Please don't ask me to do it. I don't have time. I don't. I'm having a hard enough time keeping up with what what I'm promising to do.
Yeah, your plate's like a little more than full.
I mean, I like to think I'm a pretty driven individual, and I work really hard to achieve the goals that I try to achieve. And I do know people that are busier than me, so I feel like I could do more because I see examples of some people that actually even outwork me. But there's not a lot of them, I don't think.
No, yeah. I mean, at some point, it just becomes like you can only do so much. So you just gotta just decide what are the things that are gonna have the most output on what I want to accomplish.
Right.
It just becomes like, oh, maybe this isn't as important. There's like old examples of like the 80-20 rule. It's like you can get, 80-20 rule is a good example for that. But yeah, it just becomes like, hey, what are the things I need to shuffle to the top of the list because they help the most,
Right.
Because you can only do so much, and that's a good problem to have too, right?
Yeah, I mean that's for sure. There's always I think the bigger issue with it is trying to prioritize what's important and what's not one over the other, because there's always so much to do.
Right, yeah.
What do I work on first, and it does bleed back into employees and what they need and what the focus is on the shop and at certain times. So like the last 2 weeks, I haven't been able to do nearly as much in the studio here as I would have liked to, because we're data entering and implementing a point of sale that talks to the website, along with trying to do the water and whatnot. I just, every free moment I had, it's like, well, this needs to get done before that needs to get done. So I'm doing that. And it's a lot of, get up before 6, be at work before 7, and come home and make dinner, and then go work some more until 9 or 9:30. Go to sleep, get up, do it again. And do it every day until you get it done. That's just the time of year. I got to do it. It is what it is. And we got events and things that I've obligated myself to do, and I need to be ready for. And I told myself I wasn't going to put myself in this position again, and I've already kind of put myself in this position again. So I need to really buckle down. And getting a lot of content up in the next 4 weeks is going to be probably not happening. I'm going to have content up, but not what I wanted to be at. And I'll probably try to focus on it better when I get back from Reading. Because that's only, what's the day? Today's the 10th, right? So that's 4 weeks. Yeah, the Reading tournament's in 4 weeks. And or is it 4 or 3? Hold on, we're just figuring out when we go to San Antonio.
It's 2 weeks from tomorrow, right? Yeah.
That'll be the 24th. Yeah. So Reading's in 3 weeks. Yeah. So, yeah, I have 3 weeks. Shit. I thought I had 4.
It sneaks up.
Oh, my God.
It gets here so
I haven't
fast.
built any outdoor arrows yet. I haven't retuned the bow for those. Oh, God. Oh, no.
I know.
Oh.
Reading, dude. I mean, I got a lot of things that like I eventually will make it to a Reading, but there's like a lot of little developing stories for Reading that I hope go well. I mean, Michael could shoot really well at Reading.
Mm-hmm.
Our local, I don't know if I pronounced her name right, but Spieler girls,
Yep.
they could shoot well enough to win Reading for the girls, for the ladies.
Yeah, they'll probably
We have
be
some
in
local
that
shooters
competition.
that could really show up. Brian could show up, and I mean, he could.
Well, Brian shoots an amateur because he's shooting pro, even though he's won amateur before.
Yeah.
Right there. You went amateur, you should be disqualified from participating in amateur, and you should be shooting pro.
Yeah.
Brian Atkinson, I hope you're listening.
What is his
I'm gonna
hesitation?
publicly shame you.
What is his hesitation?
He doesn't think he's there yet.
Yeah.
And he's always been a steady growth person.
Yeah.
Real steady. Kind of slow and steady, wins the race. And, maybe he feels like he needs to win it in amateur a couple of times. Or he needs to, produce a score that he knows could win pro. But he also likes to shoot with with his friends, and you couldn't if you were in pro, right?
Yeah,
So,
I can see that a little bit for, because it's an experience for him. Archery is not his full-time deal, but he's capable.
Yeah.
He's a very, very capable human, and he takes archery very seriously, and he works really hard at it, and he shoots really well. Yeah, we got there's a good little crop of shooters coming out of here now.
Yeah, we do. We have some real good shooters, some real potential possibilities of competition and whatnot. But if you look at the Washington State in general, which technically Michael's in Idaho, but
Yeah.
like the number of top level shooters that are in this state is actually really high. I mean, Bodie's from Washington.
I mean, we still hold
Yeah.
tight to Bodie. Well, we can.
Yeah. Hang on tight before he becomes Montana.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, the person who won it last year and probably favored to win it this year is a Washington resident.
Who's that?
Bodie.
Bodie, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought Bodie won Reading last
Yeah,
year.
and he did adult pro, not youth. He doesn't shoot in youth at all. So, yeah, I mean, I think he's got a real shot at it, of course. Which
Yeah,
I mean,
of course. I mean, he
shot.
Is he even a shot now? He might be the favorite. I don't know. I mean,
Oh, he's got to be. He dropped 4 last year
I don't know.
because it missing the dots 2 points or something. If I remember right. Or no, is it 2? He didn't hardly drop anything. I don't remember. I got to go back and look. But he didn't drop hardly anything.
It's really
It was
fun.
raining like a freaking monsoon. And he didn't drop a point.
Yeah, it's really fun to watch him shoot. But you're gonna shoot with him at TAC Big Sky, and it's gonna turn from fun to annoying. Is what it's
Well,
gonna happen.
I hope he just shows up with a hunting bow at least.
He will for sure.
Which
he might
he's
show
still
up with a friggin' recurve.
he's
dude.
still a good shot with a hunting bow.
Yeah.
He really is. No, his dad will definitely show up with a recurve. Yeah, but that'll be a good time.
But there's gonna be a shift. It's gonna be fun, and then a few targets later, it's gonna be annoying. It's gonna be like,
No, I don't mind.
yeah,
I really don't mind.
yeah,
Nothing like getting beat by the best. I'm pretty good about that. That'd be good.
yeah. He's special. I really root for him and stuff like that. Because I've gotten to hang out with him a little bit, watch him shoot, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, he's. I mean, we know Joel's awesome,
Yeah,
and
that'll be good.
yeah. So, yeah, Reading's a cool event. I hope everyone gets there that can get there or whatever.
Yep, it's a good time. If you have the ability or the time or the opportunity, definitely go check it out.
How does the experience compare for you to like go to a TAC versus a Reading?
Like in relation to the people or what?
Yeah, I mean, just if a person were to attend both events, what would be the difference in the feel or whatever?
I think Reading's obviously more serious, and I'm big on having a good time no matter what. It's just I want to enjoy it.
And you're not allowed to shoot with the pros because pros only shoot with pros. Is
Yeah,
that how that works?
pros are in. So there's like A group and B group a lot of times, and the A groups are pros and the B groups are not. If I remember right, so you'd have to sign into pro to shoot with pros. So. And it's still fun. Don't get me wrong, but it's a little more. Most people are taking it a little more serious, where pretty much everybody at TAC is just there to have fun.
Yeah,
And that's more my jam. I'm getting older, man. I just want to enjoy myself. Like I'm all good for competition. I don't have a problem with that, but I'm really more fixated on the competition against the 6 guys I shoot with or the 5 guys I shoot with, and just have fun with that. And not worry about the rest of it,
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to be a competitive professional archer. Those days are past at this point. I mean, not like it's not possible, but I just want to have fun.
yeah, that's where I'm at too.
And I want to meet. The problem with taking it too seriously, which I shouldn't say too seriously. The problem with taking it like legit serious is it's hard to really get to know a bunch of other people.
Yeah, if
because
you
you
go
have
into
to stay engaged.
If
in
you
what
go
you're
into
doing.
grind mode, it's a different attitude, right? Like,
Yeah. Which I'd go to that stuff to meet people, and and hear their story, and get their feedback, right? And that's hard to do. Like Brian was talking to me about what it, like when I went to Vegas and whatnot, and he's like, "Oh, you're working." Like I know some people probably think, "Oh, you went to Vegas, you had a good time, blah 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 blah." It's like I've watched you. You're working your ass off. You are talking to every person that wants to talk to you. You're stopping what you're doing while everybody else is trying to go. I'm like, just go. It's fine. I'll just text me wherever you end up, and I'll find you.
Yeah.
Because it's a different thing, but that's the more important thing to me.
Yeah.
And that's hard to find that balance. And like Joel competes in barebow, right? And he still stops and talks to every person. And I look at that and go, I don't know if I could mentally stay as engaged. Like I tried in Vegas and whatnot, but I also wasn't terribly concerned about how I was going to shoot. I wasn't trying to really compete, right? So if I didn't do well, I didn't do well. My focus was on the people, right? And his focus is still on the people, yet he's doing really well. And that's, oh man, there's a balance in his head that I just don't have, that I wish I had. because he's really good about that.
Yeah.
But yet I've never really seen. I mean, granted, pros will talk to people and whatnot, but it's not like that.
No.
It's not like he does it. Like he gives people his time and listens to their story and helps them in every way that he can. And I try to do that, but I don't think I could do that effectively well and compete well. You know, it's tough. So when there's not really a competition, it's very freeing for me to feel like I can do whatever and talk to whoever, and it doesn't matter, and that kind of thing. So that's a place I'd probably rather be in general.
Yeah, I know if I want to do something well, I can only do that thing. It's, and to each their own. Some people can process more stuff, but if I want to do well, I can only do one thing. I mean, I know I left a few TACs disappointed in how I shot, but it's like my thing was just trying to make a great video. So I'm thinking about making a great video, and I'm not thinking about...
Yeah, you're not giving really a thought to shooting well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
still
trying to...
You still do when the time happens, but you're so fixated on these other things that your focus isn't really on that.
Yeah.
And it's a challenge. It's 100% a challenge to do.
Some people are better at it than others. I just know it's not something I'm personally good at. If I want to do one thing well, I got to just really zone in on that.
Yeah.
And yeah. Anyway, that's a cool podcast. I like to hear what people think about, getting a little more, maybe picking a few archery topics that we can dig in on a little more and elaborate on, because that's what part of the fun is of a long form podcast is we don't have to take any shortcuts in talking about how to draw a bow or
talk as long and as much as you want.
Torque tune or,
Yeah, which I guess I had something more I could have talked about that because I've been thinking about something, but maybe for another.
Well, hey,
maybe for another
the
one.
thing about that is they should subscribe, so they're here for that one.
Yeah, I didn't even mean to give you that drop of that little nugget, but that's how it works out. Maybe you should subscribe so the next time you get to hear it and see it and don't have to go looking for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Subscribe, leave us a review, guys. That stuff really helps. Eventually we'd like to have sponsors for this podcast so we can allocate more time, energy, resources to making it awesome.
Yeah, and, if there's some form of revenue coming in more than just the little bit of YouTube stuff, we can put more money into it, and dedicate more time to it, which in the long run would be a good positive goal to have. But
I would love to have someone help and make us like vertical content to reshare, because my plate's full, your plate's full, know.
Yeah.
And
yep, that would be nice.
It would be cool. So guys, if you can buy some archery stuff, I got a discount code for Josh's website. It's Tim C. And what's your website, Josh?
PodiumArchery.com for all your archery needs. $99 and up is free shipping.
.com.
Yeah, and we're still working on and starting to implement a pre-order, back-order system on everything. So if I'm out of stock of something, you can still actually buy it and prepay for it, and you'll get the next one that
I think Tim's package is on there now.
It is. Tim's package is on there for sure. It's been on there for a while. But yeah, so in the past, if we were out of something, it just said we're sold out, and now you'll actually be able to, like Lancaster does, they let you pre-buy it if you want.
Right. Yeah.
So
kind
the
of
next
get your name on a ticket kind of thing.
Yeah. It basically creates a line. There's been a couple of items that we've done like pre-orders for that I knew there was going to be a bunch of demand for and wanted to be able to pre-sell them so people could like get their place in line. But it's been you literally buy it and we print a label and don't upload the tracking number, or it automatically uploads it and says it's shipped when it hasn't. This is a better functioning system, but we're still in the testing. Like we've turned on some things and we're trying it and making sure it doesn't crash the system, because it did once. We used to have a back ordering thing and tried it, and it locked it up to where nobody could buy anything and nothing was working right, and it was rejecting forms of payment. So whenever you're dealing with all the elaborate crap that we try to make work right, sometimes it just crashes the system. So yeah, hopefully that'll all be working. Should be working flawlessly by the time you actually hear this, because this is a couple of weeks ahead. So,
yeah. Signing off. We'll see you guys back.
Adios.
Adios, muchacho.